So, who next will fall into Isaku's trap? Find out with me after the title card. Welcome back to the H-Binder, and we are on to Isaku. I'm going to mess up the names on this one or something fierce. I know it. I was watching episode 1, the recording of it, and I butchered so many of the names. Oh, it's hard. But the general episode was good, so I kept it, but still. So we're going to start Isaku episode 2. So before I get into the episode, this is going to be a little longer intro than usual, because one of the things that happens when I watch a show like this that deals with dark content, specifically dark content that can deal with sexual violence, is I always have a conflict. Because people watch this material and take in this material differently. And that's the wonder of fiction and exploring fantasy through fiction. So for me and for my friends, when we would watch stuff like this, we watched it as horror, which includes the sexual content. The sexual content, while exploitative and definitely on the trying to be arousing side, for us was horrific. But cheesy and kind of gave me the exploitation B-movie vibe, which is definitely an influence that you see throughout the first episode. But here's where my conflict comes in. That's how we view it. I also understand that some people view it as being able to act out fantasies or see fantasies acted out from the perspective of someone who is given no power, has that taken away in a safe environment. And they can explore that and see that fantasy where there is a total separation from reality. So separated that it's animated. It's the same thing with reading kind of dark romance or fiction that includes touchier subject matter, or in this case, subject matter that a lot of people could find quite vile. And I think that's wonderful that this can be a tool for someone to explore fantasy in a safe way. Because exploration of fantasy by safe means is a wonderful thing. That's why I don't judge people who do enjoy this stuff. I also understand some people may view this and see the power dynamics switch. And that is a situation that they would want to role play, but they're not comfortable or safe or feel like their partner would be comfortable in role playing a situation like this. So they can instead role play vicariously through the show. I also get that. The part where I always get worried is that there are probably some viewers out there who would watch episode 1 and get to the scene where Marimatsu is verbally abusing Rika. And he's hitting her. I think he's spanking her, but he's still hitting her. And it's supposed to be a violent hit. This isn't fun, playful spanking. He is the way it's animated, the way his face appears, the rage that he kind of expresses, the hatred he has towards Rika and women in general that is expressed is so horrifying in the scene that even the other characters react they are horrified. The part that always worries me, and I do understand this when I go into material like this, is that someone would look at that and be agreeing with him. That scares me. That they would look at that and be like, that's what I want. I want to be able to call women these names. Or a partner, or whatever. I want to be able to, that's how I view sexuality, which is weird because it really isn't about sex at that point. It is about power. It's about stealing power from another person, degrading them, and turning them into a puppet. And I understand all of the other parts that I have talked about, and the way that this stuff can be, for some people, a safe way to explore dark fantasies. And I'm fine with that. The one that scares me is that small percentage of people who are going to watch something like this and want to recreate that material. Now, having said that, I have to take a broad approach when approaching material like this because of the fact that there is a lot of it, but also it's something that people don't really want to talk about or explore because of the fact that it is a very touchy and, for some people, very personal and dangerous subject. That's why I always try and be respectful when talking about this stuff. I don't make I will never make rape jokes. I don't find them funny, and especially in a context like this where we are talking about depictions of sexual assault on screen. I don't feel like it's worthwhile making jokes about that specific. There's stuff that is definitely mock worthy within the show itself, just not that material. But I do want to let you, the audience, know I do come at this thoughtfully. I do try and encapsulate all of how this could be viewed when I talk about a show, when I decide to view a show. I also understand in the world of hentai, especially with anime fans and hentai fans, we tend to be a little more accepting of extreme content because of the medium. It's animated. If I was watching something live action that was played out this way, even if I knew the actors involved completely consented, it would have a different reaction to me than watching a scene where it's played out by cartoons who don't resemble real people. They have oversized eyes, bright pink hair, the body dimensions don't make sense. Like that, there's a separation there. And I know a lot of anime fans, and specifically hentai fans, can have that separation to the point where we can kind of come at this stuff mockingly and jokingly. I keep bringing up Night Shift Nurses because for me, that was the show that was a tipping point when I started noticing hentai pushing into more extreme, and also fetish content, but more extreme content, where you started to see behaviors and stuff that would, if enacted in real life, could be potentially dangerous to people. And that was why I kind of avoided that show. I do at some point plan to watch it. I just have to work up to it. But I do want to kind of go into this next episode with that mindset of I am viewing this from a bunch of different angles to approach the material. First, as entertainment. Is it entertaining? Because for me, this is more exploring something from and not an academic, because it's not academic, but from a critical standpoint. I'm not looking at this material as erotic material. That's not when I go to something to look for erotic material, this is not where I would go. But I still want to see, is it entertaining? And is it well animated? Is there skill in there? Is it worth watching? Is there something story-wise that's interesting in here? And as far as the erotic content goes, is it bad? Is it boring? Does it do what it's intended to do? Yeah. But that is a conflict I always have with these kinds of shows, specifically talking about them. Or in the case of, like, this is a show I would never put on the TV downstairs because I don't think my husband would appreciate watching it. He knows what's in these shows. He's watched some stuff with me. He's watched Yusuga Doji and some other stuff, and he knows the content. So it's not shocking to him. It's just something that he doesn't want to engage with. And as a respectful partner, I don't make him or put him in a situation where he needs to engage with it. Now, he is a grown adult and he can separate himself from, he has said it many times. It's like, I don't force him to watch anything. If he sits down and watches something with me, he chooses to. So, yeah. Now, let's get into the expectations of what I have for episode 2. Realistically, I think this episode is going to be much more sex heavy. I think the story is going to take a backseat to increasingly erotic content. The reason I say that is because this is the middle episode. It's a filler episode to kind of move every piece into play for whatever finale they have planned, which means we're going to have the characters start getting kidnapped more and fall into more. I use erotic situations because I think that just more sexual situations. I think we're also going to start getting into mind break territory, which is not my favorite genre, but it is actually really, really common in horror, especially erotic horror in general. On my other channel, I've talked about some paperback from hell type books by Russ Martin, and that is actually a lot of the content in those books because they're erotic horror. They're not erotic, but a lot of the content, it very much focuses on mind break and also loss of agency, loss of control. I think we're going to see more of that here. I think it's going to follow that template. I do think the animation quality is going to stay the same. I don't think we're going to have a big drop there. Let's see if the quality keeps up and kind of if the story does get to move forward more. This is a really long intro, guys. I am very sorry. I really felt compelled to kind of talk about the specific content that we're dealing with because it is such a dangerous subject for a lot of people. And for my viewers, I want them to understand where I'm coming from, but also understand that I do understand all the angles that this can be watched at. I do. And I understand for some that is a dangerous, path to cross. But I also understand there are men and women who do enjoy content like this and enjoy erotic content like this. And I want you to understand, while I may not get it, and I don't think I ever will, I feel that you should enjoy what you enjoy. As long as no one is being forced to watch anything or interact with this content in a way that they do not enjoy, I have no issue with grown adults making decisions about that. I have issue when that material then crosses into real life and we start to lose that distinction between role play and reality. That is where I think the danger lies. So it is a big discussion to have, and it's probably not the best to have it in the intro before talking about a dark, erotic anime. But we'll start the conversation here, and the conversation will probably continue as we go through the series and approach other series that contain similar content. Okay, so enough of me giving you a lecture on on dark erotic content. Let's get into the episode and see if it's any good. All right, guys, I'll see you on the other side of the episode. Back to the binder again. I have to be careful when I open this thing because there are some discs in here where I definitely would get in trouble if you saw the actual disc. The artwork that they chose is quite horrifying. There we go. Got Isaku. This thing going. I'm sorry for the random shot of my legs. All right. Ah, open. So hard to do this stuff one-handed. God, the joke that comes off of that. Okay. And it goes. There we go. And hopefully everything goes well. Right. We are on the other side of the episode. And it was a lot of what I expected, but there was a few surprises. I was actually surprised that we got as much story content in this episode as we did, or not necessarily story, but character content, and a better understanding of motivations as we go through this. So we start the episode out by learning what has happened to Mio, which is she was kidnapped. We had a general idea of what's going on with her, but the scene in that one is actually pretty short. And we learned that Rika, who was our main focus in the last episode, her mind's done. She's broke. She is under Isaku's control completely. And that's actually the big reveal in this episode, that Isaku is definitely the mastermind. He is the one who is getting into Munematsu's mind, and he's in Jinpachi's mind. He's the one who's guiding these guys along. I have the character list open over here because I remember none of these names. I actually am shooting this for the second time because I kept calling Rika, Mika. There's so many characters. Some of them do actually stick out. Some of them I do remember. Obviously Kenta, because he's our main guy. And then we have Miyuki, who we spend a lot of time with in this episode. We also spend a lot of time with Kotomi. She's the one on... most of the artwork for this, she's got like the pink hair with the two pigtails. There are a couple pink-haired characters, so we really spend the most time with them story-wise, with that trio. So we basically, Miyuki and Kenta and Kotomi realize it's a bad idea to probably go wandering on your own when you have at least Isaku running around, obviously kidnapping people. They have proof that he is doing something because of the video they saw in the last episode. So they know there is a threat. That does not really matter for Akemi, because she is just like, screw you guys, I hate everybody, and runs off and is promptly kidnapped and promptly put through the paces. And it is quite not great. But that material is cut up and spaced out throughout the episode. So you're not stuck like in the last episode with Rika in a prolonged scene. You are in these, you get these little glimpses of what they're doing to these characters. There is not a ton of story here. We learn a little more about our bad guys, about Munematsu specifically, that he has a thing for Kotomi. And there's this moment when Isaku is like terrorizing Akemi, and he's going on about how all these women are just I'm not going to say the words he uses, but he's saying some pretty horrible stuff about women. And he says to Munematsu, even your beloved Kotomi is like this. And you just see Munamatsu's face just like, ah, and then he just has a little mental break. Munamatsu is the wild card in the story for me, because I think Isaku thinks he has control over him, but I don't know if he does. I think if anything is going to go out of control and ruin Isaku's plans, it's going to be Munamatsu. Jinpachi, on the other hand, is really a non-entity in this one. He really just kidnaps the teacher and is like, I want you, so I'm going to take you. And then that kind of just doesn't happen on screen. It happens, but it just happens off screen. We don't really get a lot of that. And the teacher character, I cannot remember her name. It's not on the name list. She is kind of a nothing character. She's kind of a gibbering mess this entire episode. Psychologically, she went into the situation kind of weak-willed, and it took nothing for her to just kind of break down. And she, of course, like Akemi, makes the horrible decision to go run off on her own. Out of everything, there are some good horror movie moments in here. So we do get an idea that that Kotomi and Miyuki both have feelings for Kenta. And so does Rika from the last episode. And they're trying to make those feelings known, which this is not the ideal time to have a love confession, but you do you, ladies. And it kind of gets ridiculous to the point of like, why is everyone in love with Kenta? Why him? He's so meh. But then I think about the other guys in their class, and I go, okay, I get it. He is the only one who's not a psychotic monster. That makes sense why he is the ideal pick. Okay. So I get it. But he also is kind of does nothing. They wander around, they try and find an exit, and then what ends up happening is, oh my god, I'm going to keep screwing up her name. Kotomi has to pee. Bad timing, but it happens. And she's like telling Miyuki, hey, I can't do this in front of Kenta. If you hear noise outside, someone is mowing their yard or trimming their bushes or murdering their family. I don't know, nor do I care. But if you hear the noise, that is what that is. And I apologize, I do not control the outside world. If I did, the world would be a very different place. So she's like, I can't do it in front of Kenta, even though Miyuki's like, well, we need to stay together because Psycho is out there trying to nab us all. But shame overpowers everything. So they hide in a room, and while Kenta is in the hallway alone, he gets knocked out by Isaku, who then tries to bust in on the girls. He does. And there's actually a surprisingly tense scene because Miyuki gets Kotomi to hide. And Isaku is attacking her, and he's putting her through he's being, oh god, he's so creepy. Ugh. But he's a great villain in this sense because he's just slimy. He's not over the top. He's just kind of ugh. And he's doing all this horrible stuff, and he's trying to get Miyuki to reveal where Kotomi is, because in his mental plan, Kotomi is next. He actually has a plan on how all of this is supposed to play out. And he reveals to Miyuki that Miyuki was supposed to be the last one. Also, he reveals that the videos that he is creating are specifically being created for Kenta. Not with Kenta's permission, but that they are doing that because they are leaving the videos for him specifically. Don't know why yet, but I'm guessing that's going to play into what the other two guys probably hate Kenta for some reason. I kind of get why, because they're evil SOBs and don't realize why all the girls don't like them. And it's the incel story all over again. Yeah. So that scene is really tense. He's trying to get her to reveal where Kotomi is. And she refuses, and she refuses, and he is like pulling out all the stops. One of those includes something that is named Fleet. And if you know what that is, you know how horrifying that can potentially be. And during all of this, she, I don't know if on purpose or inadvertently, looks to the side under the bed where Kotomi is, and he grabs Kotomi. And the scene would be even better if the animation had held up. I didn't predict an animation drop in quality in this episode, but it dropped. It was not good. There was actually, in that scene when he's trying to bust in the door, there's supposed to be a pan from Mayuki to the door. And instead of being the smooth pan, which really would just be move the camera across the cell, they attempted to do a more dynamic move with the animation, and it just gets really choppy and it looks terrible. And then Miyuki runs over and slams the door shut. She's trying to hold it closed, and she goes completely off model. Her face kind of vanishes. It just gets bad. And then the scene gets better when Isaku like kicks down the door and like knocks her over, and the door lands on top of her. And you get good horror movie vibes from that scene, but the animation was just horrible. And a lot of the scenes outside of the sexual content, the animation is just rough, and the characters are having a hard time staying on model. Part of that is because I think they're a little too complex. The teacher really has a problem with this. Her proportions, she's wearing this structured suit, and there's a lot of like seams in the shoulders and all of these pieces to the suit. So animating that takes a while, and she also has this very intricate hair that is very much done in pieces, and it just it cannot hold from frame to frame. So, and there are times where her proportions just go bizarre because of that suit. So there's one shot where she like looks horrified, and her head gets surprisingly large, but her shoulders get very narrow, and it feels off. So there is a quality dip as far as animation goes, which is disappointing. Although I will say the animation in the first episode is not excellent. It's not super dynamic, but it was at least consistent. The consistency drops here, but I'm guessing that's because the budget had to be pushed towards the increase in sexual scenes, because those scenes are well animated. They're not necessarily appealing to watch, but they are well animated. I will say, in all of hentaidom, the guys in these shows have the ugliest dongs I have ever seen animated in the world. I know that is explicit, and I normally don't talk about that stuff, but we must talk about the ugly dong epidemic in this show. Oh my God, whoever drew those, I don't know if they ever saw one or if they were just like, you know what, I hate these things so much, let's make it look like a dead pug. But it is bad. And luckily you don't see a lot of them, but when they show up, holy crap, are they just hideous. Rant over. So overall, episode was not bad. I enjoyed the story building, the character building that did show up. The erotic content was paced out well enough where I never got bored or I never felt like I got stuck in a scene too much. That did happen in episode 1 with Rika's scene, where that was basically just a prolonged sex scene or assault scene. In this one, it's chopped. Everything is very chopped up. So you have bits and pieces happening throughout. And some scenes are just not shown at all. Mio's scene is not shown at all. They find a tape for her material, and Mayuki and Kenta are both like, there's no point in watching this. We know what's on here. We know we're going to see her be humiliated and assaulted. We don't need to see that. And so they don't watch the tape. Which is I say it's an odd choice because I know what the purpose of this show is, but it was a choice I appreciated because it actually told me a lot about Miyuki and Kenta as characters. The other characters really don't do much. Kemi really spends most of the episode just kind of being tortured, so we don't get a lot with her, but we had a good idea of who she was before. Kotomi is a little annoying. Her whole motivation is she has a crush on Kenta, and she just clings to him. And then bad things happen. Now let's talk about how this episode ends. I mentioned Fleet earlier. Yes, that comes up. And it is a scene with Kotomi. And I will say it is one of the way it's done, it is not explicit. You see nothing. It is all implied. You'll see her reactions. You'll see him. You'll see different things happening, except for what the horrifying, like the actual act is. And I appreciated that because it framed it as horror. It framed it as horrifying. So essentially, we see the perspective inside the room where it's happening, but we also see Kenta watching the tape of it happening. So we know that everything has already occurred. And you get his reaction. He doesn't watch the tape till the end. He's like, I need to find my friends. I need to get out of here. So he runs off, and we're left seeing a blinking screen in a room as we hear Kotomi's voice and her screaming. And I appreciated that because it took a scene that was already going to be quite horrific and probably stomach churning. But focused more on the horror of it instead of the stomach churning of it. And I appreciated that. Now, will that carry over into episode 3, or will I get a surprise at the start of the episode? I really hope there is no surprise at the start of the episode, because no one wants that surprise. Well, most people don't want that surprise outside of a very specific fetish community. So, that also means, yes, we are going to be covering episode 3. So episode 3 will be covered next week, Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, as all my episodes drop on Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And that is actually going to wrap up my review here. Overall, I thought it was consistent with the last episode, quality story-wise. Animation-wise, dipped. But overall, I'm still curious how this is all going to wrap up. Is everyone going to get what they deserve? And how badly are these characters going to be screwed up? Because I do get a hint that we get some of that after. So, cool. I will see you guys next week. If you liked this video, give me a like. It'll help the channel and it makes me feel good. And subscribe. That's how you make sure you never miss an episode. Hit that little bell and it'll notify you when new episodes are released. All right, guys. Love what you love. Enjoy what you're reading, watching, and, fapping too. And have an amazing morning, afternoon, or evening. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.